Hello and welcome to the Championship Talk podcast. I'm your host Paul O'Toole, and not joined with me is my co-host Thomas Falco. Again, we can't seem to get the stars to align. Busy festive periods and also work restrictions, but we do hope to record in the new year. There is a lot less fixtures to go through, and the news topic revolves around one subject and one subject only, and that's COVID-19. The fixtures at the weekend that were called off: Cardiff at home to Derby, Coventry at home to Stoke, Millwall at home to Preston, Reading at home to Luton, and QPR at home to Swansea, all were called off. And we've already had the announcement that Boxing Day's trips to Cardiff at home to Coventry, Stoke at home to Barnsley have all been postponed due to COVID-19 cases. There's also games in the lower leagues, and also we know that the Premier League are looking at the games over the festive period. As we know, there are so many games in such a small space of time. All it takes is the virus to emerge amongst a group of players that play, and then given the such tight turnarounds, 3 days for some clubs, this is going to happen. And it probably was always likely to happen. Didn't happen so much last year. I think it was just Rotherham that had issues over the festive period last season in the Championship. I think this year we're in a situation where more people have got it. We know that from the figures. And that will a group of football, two football teams are a subgroup and a cross section of society at large, and you will see more players getting it. The one thing I do want to talk around, and this is a quarter of all EFL players do not want the jab, and only 50% have been vaccinated. This is quite worrying. That's amongst all footballers. I think that's quite worrying, and I think that's quite a worrying statistic. 31% of players have not received their first dose, which again is extremely worrying. I've said before that footballers are immensely healthy athletes that rely on their bodies as an income and do really well in terms of that income. I can't fathom as to why they're not being advised by the best scientists. You know, in any profession, the best people do not work for the government because they can earn more money in the private sector. And when you look at the medical science that goes into running a little bit faster every game, that they wear those monitors that monitor how much they move in a game, and some of them got their own special dietitians and coaches, but certainly in the sort of the upper echelons of the Championship, it staggers me to think that there are players out there that don't want to protect their potential future earnings. And again, I come at this from more money side. If you listen to all of the previous episodes, it's all been about money for me, and it's all been how the Championship is financed, etc. That's the bit that really kind of intrigues me. And when I look at the player data and think, why would you not potentially protect yourself against a breathing related illness that potentially could stop your future earnings? If you're 21, 22 and you catch this and have long COVID and end up having a extended period out, if you come to the end of your contract and you're experiencing symptoms of long COVID, you may not get picked up by another club. And we do live in a world where, certainly the footballers live in a world where you're only as good as your last game. And if your last game was 6 months ago and your contract ends, your potential earnings could be significantly less, and that I find hard to fathom. I don't think, and myself and Thomas don't believe that people should be forced to have something they don't want to have. You would hope common sense would prevail, and footballers would protect themselves against something that's going to potentially stop them from getting illness. Given the fact that most of them have ice baths to protect them from to recover quicker so that they don't get injuries. Most of them warm up to protect themselves from getting muscle-related injuries. There have been players in the past that don't believe in warm-ups. Pirlo was a famous one. He said he doesn't believe in warm-ups, doesn't think it should happen. that was his choice. He clearly didn't believe that warming up before a game was going to protect him from. This is something similar, and it's very, very disappointing to see games being called off because of COVID-related illnesses. And again, you don't know whether that's due to players that have been vaccinated or not vaccinated. However, if you were going to say that 7 out of 10 players in the EFL eventually will be vaccinated, that's quite low. And that's going to always lead to situations where games are needing to be called off because of isolation rules and etc. And it will come down to teams will think about signing a player that's not been double jabbed, because especially in the higher leagues, football and travel are hand in hand. International football, and players are not going to be as attractive to teams if they can't play the game. Also, I believe that if it's your choice not to be double vaccinated, that's absolutely your choice. However, I do believe that if you end up having to isolate or end up not being able to train, you shouldn't be paid. That's a choice of the clubs to have you. If you were a 0-hour contract employee, you wouldn't be paid for being off sick. If you're someone who's declining to take a preventative measure, then you shouldn't be paid either. Again, I don't think people should be forced to be paid. I do think people should be educated, because I do think that there are players that are currently isolating that potentially had been jabbed, may not have contracted or tested positive. So this is going to be a debate for society as a whole, and from a football point of view, I just find it very, very interesting to think that an elite level athlete won't take a preventative measure that potentially could hurt the longevity of their career. That I find very difficult. And I also find that very difficult on a number of levels, because we're talking about such vast sums of money in such a small space of time. Footballers don't get to have a career that spans till they're 60. They don't get to retire at 65. They retire at 30, 35. Some of them are lucky 38, 37. That doesn't give them an awful long time. You're talking 15 years maximum potentially for some players. Why would you not want to keep doing a job that most people would give their right arms for? And you're going to be paid handsomely to do it. You just have a jab that potentially is going to stop you getting an illness that will really hamper your ability to play football. So obviously we move on to the games, and the game's been postponed. Obviously we've got fans in stadiums. Carlisle United, brilliant tweet. Any fan gathering or outdoor sporting event, as I said on last week's poll, that has more than 10,000 fans everyone has to provide proof of vaccination status and things like that, COVID passports. So Carlisle United have changed their attendance to 9,999. I thought that was brilliant. Best tweet ever. Fantastic. Really not helping, though. Really not helping, and really against what the whole measures are supposed to be there to do. I would say, again, tongue in cheek, that they would like to get 10,000 fans in their stadium. It probably doesn't happen all that often. But yeah, obviously fans, if you are going to games, and obviously the guidance at the present, as recording on the 20th, is still that outdoor sporting events can continue. Obviously clubs need that revenue. I would say that when you are there, though, just be sensible. Wear a mask, even if it's outdoors. If you're in the tunnels, wear a mask. Sanitize your hands. Just be safe with your own personal hygiene. Because there are more colds, there are more things going around this year than there were last year, because last year we were just more cautious about washing your hands. So there are things like that you can do. Obviously, how long we've got fans in stadiums for, educated guess, probably till January. There probably is going to be some lockdown restrictions. You just don't know what the government, what measures they've got to take. I don't want to go back to not seeing fans in stadiums again, but public health has to take priority, and football is the least important thing of everything that's going on, but it is still important to a lot of people. So that's where that stands. However, we did have some games, this weekend, and we'll go through those in a minute, and we'll also look at the fixtures that we do know that are going ahead at present. There's one news article that I want to just bring your attention to, and this was Tony Mowbray talking about potentially having to sell Ben Brereton, and also saying that they're not going to break the bank to get promoted. I thought that's very interesting. That's really refreshing to hear. Some clubs would probably go all out to to try and get promoted. They're in a good position, and I think that's interesting to hear that they're not going to break the bank. They currently sit third. Obviously played game more than other teams, but I think that's an interesting way to say that we're not going to break the bank, and if we have a good offer coming for one of our best players or our best player, we will listen to it. I think that's a pragmatic way to run a football club. It's better to have a football club that's here in 3 years than have been in the Premier League, been relegated, and in financial trouble. I think that's a really good pragmatic way of looking at it. Not what the fans want to hear. It isn't what a fan wants to hear, but ask the fans of Derby, ask the fans of Bury whether they would rather have had a club that was managed properly and didn't have go all out to try and get promoted. And I think they would say they'd much rather have been in a solid, stable financial position. So I thought that's a really interesting article. Well worth a read, that interview with Tony Mowbray. So we move on to the games that did take place. And Friday night we had Barnsley 0, West Brom 0. Really quite surprising. Barnsley played really, really well. And West Brom had 58% possession, 16 shots, only 3 on target. It just shows how well Barnsley defended. 3 shots to Barnsley, 1 on target. So again, it was all one-way traffic. But when you look at Michael Hellick, man of the match, Bradley Collins in goal for Barnsley, played really, really well. They just were resolute in defending, and probably guarantee the game Sky were going to pick on that Friday night was going to be 0-0. Then we move on to the 12:30 kickoff. Middlesbrough 1, Bournemouth 0. Andreas Sporor scores a penalty on 53 minutes. 18,000 at Riverside to see this. Isaiah Jones, man of the match, plays really, really well. Middlesbrough had 41% possession, 19 shots, 7 on target, which is quite phenomenal. They limited Bournemouth to 10 shots, only 3 on target. Game of the weekend, and the game that sends them third, Blackburn 4, Birmingham 0. John Buckley scores after 6 minutes. Square ball, the keeper saves, and it's just a tap in from the penalty spot. He kind of spills it right in front of John Buckley. Reda Kadira on 52 minutes. Really good through ball by Lenihan. The keeper comes out, doesn't get anywhere near it, and Kadira just rounds him and tucks it in. There was a defender on the line, so it wasn't as easy as just to tap him. Ben Brereton then scores a penalty. The keeper just rushes out and takes the attacker down. Ben Brereton coolly steps up and converts. Then he gets a header on 79 minutes. This is on the goal line. The ball goes low. It tries to be cleared. The ball comes up and he just nods it in. Probably was going to go in for an own goal anyway, but he gets the goal for being in the right place at the right time. 12,000 at Ewood Park to see that. 46% possession for Blackburn. 16 shots, 5 on target. 8 to Birmingham, 2 on target. Then we move on to Blackpool 3, Peterborough 1. Dembele scores after 11 minutes to make it 1-0 to Peterborough. This was a left-footed shot. Josh Knight rounds the goalkeeper. Josh Knight through ball, and Dembele rounds the goalkeeper for a tap-in. Keshi Anderson scores after 27 minutes and equalises. This is poked in from about a yard from a Josh Bowler cross. Carey then scores on 86 minutes to make it 2-1 to Blackpool. This was finished low from the penalty spot, and then into injury time, Jerry Yates on 90 minutes, keeper spills an easy shot, and he's there for a tap-in to make that 3-1. There was 9,700 at Bloomfield Road. Blackpool 40% possession, 10 shots, 8 on target. Really good conversion rate there. 9 shots, 1 on target to Peterborough. Bristol City 2, Huddersfield 3. This was another really cracking game. Andreas Weimann scores after 2 minutes. Low cross from the right from Semio, and it's just tapped in. We then get a missed penalty by Danny Ward. Holmes then scores and makes it 1-1 on 41 minutes. Blast from the defence, just unmarked. He blasts through the defence, unmarked. No one tracks the run, and he's just a really smart finish with acres of time and space. Should never got that much space. And then Sinani then scores on 46 minutes. This was low from just inside the box to the keeper's left. Danny Ward then gets a header from a deflected cross, makes it 3-1. Then Weimann gets one into injury time, smashed in from just inside the box, only a consolation in the end. When you look at the possession, 50-50 really. Bristol City had 17 shots, 6 on target, 11 shots to Huddersfield, 6 on target. Forest 2, Hull 1. This was my coupon buster because I had this as a draw with Hull's runner full. Lewis Potter scores after 43 minutes. Just such good control. And then just a really cool finish past the goalkeeper. Lewis Grabban then scores a penalty. It's not a penalty. It's an absolute dive. It's terrible. But Lewis Grabban steps up and scores. Then Brennan Johnson then scores on 72 minutes. Great chest and a deft finish past the keeper. 50% possession. Forest had 9 shots, 3 on target, 11 shots to hold, 2 on target. Pretty even game. A draw may have been the fairer result, but Forest will take that all day long. So where that leaves the table, Fulham are top. Only won 2 of their last 6 though, but they have played a game less than everyone else. Due to play tonight, COVID permitting. Bournemouth are second. They are on 43 points. Blackburn are up into third. They're on 42, but they have played 23 games, as have Bournemouth and as have West Brom just below them. But that's significantly more than QPR that are in 5th, who have only played 21, and Stoke that have played 22 are in 6th. This is going to get really confusing. West Brom are 4th on 41 points. As say, QPR and Stoke are level on points. QPR have a game in hand, and both of those have games in hand on teams above them. Forest are up into 7th. They've also played 23 games, but they're on 33 points. They've not lost in their last 6. Coventry dropped down to 8th, but they've played a game less than everyone else. Down the bottom, Derby are on 4 points from 22 games. Obviously, they are minus 21 points on that total, so actually really not bad. They'd probably be about 7th or 8th. 17th or 18th. Barnsley are 23rd on 14 points, not won any of their last 6. Peterborough are 22nd on 19 points. Reading are 21st on 21 points. Cardiff are 20th on 22 points. Hull are 19th on 23 points, but they lost to Forest, was the first loss in 6. Bristol City are 18th on 27th, as are Birmingham on 27th. So, Boxing Day's games. So the 26th is when we're supposed to have a full round of fixtures. We're not, as I've already discussed. So we know that Cardiff, Coventry is a no-go, and we know that Barnsley and Stoke is a no-go. Fulham are supposed to host Birmingham. Middlesbrough are supposed to host Nottingham Forest. Millwall are supposed to host Swansea. Huddersfield, Blackpool. Hull are supposed to host Blackburn Rovers. Luton are supposed to be at home to Bristol City. Peterborough are supposed to be home to Reading. Preston are supposed to be home to Sheffield United. And then on the 27th, those were all 3 o'clock kickoffs. And on the 27th, 3 o'clock, Derby is supposed to be at home to West Brom, and QPR are supposed to be at home to Bournemouth at 5:30. We know that a lot of those games are not going to go ahead. If any of them go ahead, I think it will be a miracle. So over the festive period, just be lucky for whatever football there is on. If you are going to a football game, stay safe. As I say, I wouldn't, advocate people, cancelling tickets and things like that just yet, because the guidance is to, we can still go out and do these type of events at the moment. But if you are going to a game, please do stay safe. Subsequently, if there is a local game going off in your area, and you've had your game cancelled that you were planning on going to, support your local team, because there are teams a lot further down in the lower leagues that need your support. So it's always good to go to a local non-league game. Again, as long as it's safe to do so. So that's goodbye from me, and that's goodbye from Thomas. Have a Merry Christmas, and we shall speak to you all in the new year. Goodbye, everyone.